certain plants attract pollinating insects by offering them shelter. For instance, Amorphophallus, a 6-foot-tall flower, attracts pollinating insects by offering them a safe haven to lay their eggs. In the yucca plant, on the other hand, a female moth transfers the pollen of another flower to the stigma and simultaneously deposits her eggs in the locule of the flower's ovary. The larvae, which hatch out of the eggs, start consuming some of the developing seeds, while leaving enough of them to propagate the plant. Thus, both the moth and the plant are dependent on each other for the completion of their respective life cycles. However, certain birds and insects such as the bumblebee visit flowers for nectar and pollen, but don't bring about pollination. These creatures are referred to as pollen robbers. Honeybees, as well as other insects, also pollinate a large number of aquatic flowering plants, such as the freshwater lily. However, in certain freshwater plants such as Vallisneria and Hydrilla, and marine seagrasses such as Zostera, pollination occurs by water. This is also known as hydrophily. In Vallisneria, for example, the female plant produces a long-stalked female flower that reaches the surface of the water. The male plant, on the other hand, remains submerged in water, where it produces several tiny floral buds. Upon maturing, the buds rise to the water's surface and open up to expose the anthers. Pollen released from the anthers is carried by water currents, where some of them eventually come in contact with the stigma. In the case of Zostera, a dioecious seagrass, the male and female flowers remain submerged in water. The male flowers produce long and ribbon-like pollen grains which have a mucilaginous covering that protects them from getting wet. The pollen released in water is carried by water currents towards the submerged stigma, and thus pollination is completed. Surprisingly, in aquatic plants, wind pollination, also called anemophily, is more widespread than water pollination. Wind pollination also occurs in terrestrial plants such as grass, bamboo, coconut, and maize. These plants possess a compact inflorescence with well-exposed stamens that allow easy dispersal of pollen, and a large feathery pistil which makes it easy to trap pollen. The pollen, which is light and non-sticky, is produced in large quantities. A single flower of cannabis, for instance, produces 5 lakh pollen grains to compensate the loss of pollen associated with wind pollination. Thus, wind, water, as well as biotic pollinating agents bring about pollination. An important process that ultimately leads to fertilization and the production of seeds in plants.